Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Hope you had a good night's sleep, sir. I sure did.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad somebody did. I have when I get up sometimes in the middle of the night to check the darkness. You know what I mean? Do that little stroll. I have a hard time getting back to sleep sometimes. I'll lie there and okay. Back in bed. You can go to sleep now, and it sometimes takes me a while. But you apparently didn't have that problem last night.
I usually do, but I guess at some point in time you get kind of exhausted. But I don't know. It just seems like everybody's got all kinds of maladies these days. The sinuses, this and that. You're tired all the time. You're fatigued.
Yes, I know.
Is it the weather? Is it
And
that? You feel unsettled.
Yes,
it's the news. It is the news. It's the world
that's
we
true.
live in today.
He told me what he dreamt about last night. He dreamt about the news. I thought he's been doing this.
I ran into Bernie Sanders, and I'm going, I
in
hate
your
that
dream.
guy. In my dream, and we're arguing.
You know, 40 years ago, you would have had more interesting dreams, but now you dream of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders.
Oh, yeah, he said I was certifiably nuts. And
Sanders said that.
Because I didn't believe in what he was doing.
Oh, okay.
And so then in the dream, then he goes, well. Then you're nuts, like the rest of the
no.
He said,
"Well, you're nuts."
You're nuts.
Yeah, you're nuts.
We send you.
There's a guy
we'll send you to your shrink.
He's a senator from Vermont, right?
Yeah.
He sounds like he still sounds after all these years like he's from New York. Bernie Sanders, from New York.
He's a very good point there. He's a senator from Vermont,
right?
So what does he have? What business does he have? He's from Vermont. He represents Vermont.
Right.
Why is he sucking up all the national air? Oh, yeah, I know. He ran for president once.
Yeah, it's because he's a socialist. And, based upon, and I'm not going to get into the elections, folks, because I don't know about you. They were primaries, for one thing, and they weren't the ones that really count in the fall. And I get kind of sick of hearing the same old song and dance from the media. I mean, they were talking about this Francesca Hong in Wisconsin like it was a done deal, and she lost. She lost last night. But they were talking right up, seriously, like until an hour or two before the election results came in, they were saying that, it looks like she's going to walk away with this. No, it didn't happen.
It is funny that you mentioned that. I sent you something yesterday. I actually put together an algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and but I have to use it on a server.
You have too much time on your hands, Bill.
I have time.
You have too much time.
No, I don't have a lot of time. But I have to build the server, and I ran into a problem with the server. Just long story short, I kept going, why can't I put this one Python program on my damn computer? App.py. I need this, and it turned out that Windows is blocking everything. Oh, you don't need that in your computer. And I'm going, oh, really? Guess what? On this computer now, I have a whole different platform. But either way, I was able to yesterday run. What it does is it constantly monitors the news. Is what the app does. And it's not looked at. It doesn't really look at conservative news. It looks at the news in general to give you a barometer of what the news is going on right now at that moment in time, a snapshot at that cycle in time. So what I got, here was the lean. It was almost all the way to the left. It was, if you look at like a center line, it was 42% way over to the left.
Wait a second.
Progressive socialist.
You broke up for a second. 42% woke? Is that what you said, Bill?
Progressive socialist.
Uh-huh.
It was almost, if you look at it like a gas meter or a gas tank, and the green is over to the left instead of the right, and, in the middle it's kind of blue, and then it's right, it's red. But either way, it has percentages. That's just aesthetics to it. But we are 42% heavily leaning with news, progressive socialist.
Mm-hmm.
31% moderate. Only 27% of the news is even conservative at all. That's it. 27%.
Bill, why doesn't
Now,
that surprise me? Seriously, you look at it every night and you hear the same old song and dance, even from, by the way, conservative outlets like Fox, even though they have their right-leaning talk show hosts at nighttime, they still throw in every so often these little, dare I say, promos for the left. You know?
Yeah. But speaking of the news, you're going with all that negative coverage going out there against the right. Where do we sit? 28% of the people right in the middle it's a toss-up, 28%. 31% are leaning Democrat based on the news. But 41% are leaning right or Republican. So even with all the crap that they're throwing out there, the pulse of the country is we're centered. We're right-leaning.
Let me ask you, but see, if they keep talking like everything is moving to the left, the media keeps promoting it. It's like they're selling a product. They're selling a new product. If they keep telling you the product is really great or the product is really catching on and all your neighbors really like it, and after a while there are people who are in the middle who really aren't paying a lot of attention who will say, well, maybe I should look into that. Well, maybe I'm wrong, They're selling a product, and they're selling socialism. The media is.
Right.
Go ahead. You had something.
Well, I was going to say, and then, if you look at the Trump lean, it's mixed. What they were saying is he's got a 38% negative poll. 28%, they're neutral, saying, yeah, he's our president. He's doing all right. 34% are saying, no, he's doing a damn good job. Again, that's with the media that's gone totally left and socialist and has thrown everything, even the kitchen sink. I mean, I would go and check in the kitchen, see if you still got a sink.
Yeah.
Because they may have thrown it at Trump, And that's what this thing does on a consistent basis. It just sits there and looks at ABC, NBC, CBS, and the mainstream news sources and tells you what they're doing. The point is that we are not getting a clear picture of what's going on in the world because we have state-run news.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Well, I think it's. Can we? You say that you can update this on a daily basis? Maybe every couple of days we should.
Yeah, I'll update it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll probably update it later today because it'll be interesting to see what it says by the time that everybody wakes up and gets this news of how those elections went last night, which, they're really not talking that much about, and it'll be interesting to see how it works out, and how the news goes. That should be that Hogue chick.
Yeah.
There was no reason for her to be all over the news everywhere you went. Well, let's see what she has to say. Who cares?
Hell, she said she didn't like the white part of her own kid. She's married to a white guy, or was. I guess they divorced. And she says every time she looks at her son, she doesn't like the white part of him. And this is a lady who wanted to be
up for adoption.
She wanted to be the governor of an entire state for all the people. Well, fortunately, but the thing that gets me, Bill, is she lost by like 3,000 votes. Not a lot of votes. So that means there are a lot of people in that state who got their heads screwed on backwards.
Or there's a lot of people in that state that voted that shouldn't vote. See, and that's where the real problem is. Is that how many plants do we have here? And they're going to go, okay, we didn't get it this time. Bring in the next train load,
Well, I got something else to consider. We've talked about in the past the left controlling the outcomes of certain elections, and we always think it's the outcome of elections that affect Republicans. But what if they didn't want this Hogue to be the face of their party? I'm talking about mainstream Democrats. Might they not have adjusted the numbers last night so she didn't win? Because I'm serious. Up until like an hour before the votes were concluded, she was ahead.
Well, that could be because they knew that they would be in. Look, the Democratic Party is sitting there going, they're in trouble. And, you can see that when you watch James Carville squirm. And I got to believe that, you talk about a deep state, there are powers that be in these two parties that pull the strings. Trump gets opposition from strings being pulled on the right side. Who these people are, we don't know. But they're there.
Yeah.
They make decisions.
They're the deep state.
Yeah, and I mean, but we've got look, that's major, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it.
I got to, we talked yesterday about President Trump transferring from one plane to another in a catering truck, and that should have been top secret and never leaked. Period. End of
right,
discussion.
We talked about that yesterday.
There's a guy named Dan Lamothe from the Washington Post, right? He thought it was within it was his duty to leak it to the world. Now, mind you, he didn't just leak it to you and to me. He also leaked it to the guys who were trying to kill President Trump, which means that next time they'll check the catering trucks. But anyway, I want you to hear Lamothe talking about this like he did something really important. Listen.
Candidly, this was a surreal story to cover. The initial discussions, the initial tip, and then looking into it, I kept finding myself saying, what am I missing? Is this true?
President Trump was seen boarding Air Force One at 8:24 p.m. local time on July 8th. But actually, according to the Post, and you can see here, Trump and several of his aides were secretly shuttled minutes later onto this airport catering truck, which was elevated and positioned at a door out of the view of the cameras. Now, the Post reports that the president was on that catering truck when it pulled away from Air Force One at 8:30 p.m., secretly bringing him to a smaller plane, an Air Force C-32A, making the Air Force One that everyone thought he was on a decoy that still had the reporters who thought the president had boarded that plane and who you see boarding right here on the right, and some White House staff aboard. The Washington Post reports, and I quote, "The maneuver meant that the president's actual location was concealed from the American public and many senior U.S. officials for hours." Air Force One then landed in the UK hours later.
The most significant piece here is that for weeks now, the American public talking about the two Air Force One jets, the newer one from Qatar and the older one from the last couple decades of operations. And in reality, the president was on neither plane. This came to the Post in part because individuals thought that there was a hole in public understanding here that needed to be clarified. Not an easy story to confirm. I mean, it obviously took some time since that event to put this all together and put this together in a way that was convincing and confirmable and able to report it.
And Dan, you should have kept it to your friggin' self, okay? Because there are things, I'll bet you, I read a story yesterday that I think it was Obama traveled to some place in a C-5A at one point. And, whenever you're
it's nothing new that they've done there.
Yeah. And, Bill, the thing that gets me is you hear these indignant reporters. They were left to be decoys on the old plane. First of all, they were going to fly on that plane no matter what. The reporters, right? The reporters they didn't have an option. They didn't say, okay, well, I'm not going to get on this plane. I'm going to book a flight back home. No. They were already sitting comfy, probably eating their snacks on Air Force One, and they were ready for the flight. Nobody complained. And by the way, they were all in the safest airplane in the world, probably. I mean, if you're going to send people as decoys, put them in Air Force One that has all sorts of deterrence. Yeah. Now, you may say, why wasn't the president on it? Because apparently the threat was so critical, so true, that it was even more dangerous than they thought, and that's why they put him on another airplane. Listen, they don't have a responsibility to protect the reporters. Bill?
I was just going to say, you guys want a story, and really, how did it feel to be a guinea pig? That you were a decoy sitting on that plane, eating your peanuts, getting your salmonage, having whatever it is you want to drink, sitting there, doing whatever you want to do. You're thinking, oh man, life is great. And really, you were nothing but a decoy. You were the target.
Well, they didn't like it, Bill. They were indignant. They were indignant. President Trump was asked about it last night when he was, I think he was boarding Air Force One. He went to the Patriot games, which were being held in Ohio. And, the guy's all over the place. Here's what President Trump said.
Well, it's only up to Secret Service. I just follow what they'd like to do. So I go by Secret Service and the military. They wanted me to go on a different flight, a different plane, equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say. What's the nature of the threat? I guess there was a threat out there. I didn't really ask too much about it. I get a lot of threats.
He gets a lot of threats. As a matter of fact, he went on and he said something along the lines of, aren't you afraid of the threats? And he said, nah, I get them all the time. What will be, will be. That was his attitude when he was quiet. They don't put that, by the way, in the audio clip that I have here. That was too much of a macho comment.
Well, he's accepted his reality. And I think I mentioned that too. I was watching a disaster movie I relate back to a certain time. You get somebody that's in a particular environment, situation. Mm-hmm. Let's say that, I mentioned the Berkeley Bridge when that thing collapsed. And I thought, oh my God, because I'm, claustrophobic. And if I'm trapped, I would go nuts. And, but it wasn't from that particular story. It was another building. But, people that, all of a sudden they're pinned, they're caged. You all of a sudden, and you're panicky and you're in pain. You can't move. And then your mind does a thing. It accepts that reality. And it's not that you've given up per se, but you've accepted the consequences. And then all of a sudden, it passes to where you can deal with it. I mean, he's had so many pot shots taken at him, and he's been hit. He's probably at that point to where, he's accepted it. In his mind, in his heart, his soul.
Well, he has said, Bill, he said
it could happen.
He said last night, and they didn't include this either. He said he gets a lot of these things, a lot of threat, a lot that we never hear about. That's why the media, I just love when they say, oh, well, you left us as decoys. Folks, they fly with him all the time. That plane was probably more of a target when he's on it. Go ahead.
If I were a terrorist and I wanted to get attention and take out the president, I would love nothing more if I were a terrorist. I am not this kind of person, but I would love nothing more than to get my target and all those little media people to go along with it, because then my cause would get all the attention in the world because of what happened there. And doesn't that kind of fit the modus operandi?
You want to know what he's up against? Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell.
They should be on the plane with him.
Well, they were talking about it. I want you to hear the glee in their voices. Listen.
Now I'm very pleased to say it's time for the last word with Lawrence O'Donnell, which is more of a pleasure for me to say than usual, because the New York Times has just posted a headline on the front page of the New York Times website, which reads, "Trump hid in a catering container to sneak out of Turkey." And honestly, that news has just broken. Trump hiding in a catering cart. And the thing I want most in the world upon hearing that news is to hear Lawrence O'Donnell explain it to me. And God bless you, Lawrence. Please tell me that you will.
It is issue number one in this hour of coverage. We're going to be relying on the Washington Post that broke the story a couple hours before the New York Times, and it's one of the many examples of how Donald Trump has lost control. He didn't just lose control of which version of Air Force One he got to use. He lost complete control in this story.
Unbelievable. This guy, by the way, Lawrence O'Donnell, he has never said a kind word about Donald Trump, ever. I mean, this guy hates the right, hates what Trump stands for, and will, at every opportunity, he'll try to knock him down. But, folks, this shouldn't surprise you. I mean, you hear the glee, and I was thinking when she was talking about he hid in a catering truck to get out of Turkey, almost like it was a play on words, meaning like to get out of the verb. But then again, I thought, if she was around during the time of Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, when he was coming in to be inaugurated in 1861, he put on a woman's shawl and kind of hid himself, hunched over, on the train between Baltimore and Washington on the advice of Pinkertons, which at the time was the version of the Secret Service. They said, Mr. President, there's a lot of threats out there. They want to see you dead. We want to see you at the inauguration, so you're going to have to go incognito. You're going to have to put a scarf and the newspapers, and even then, they dressed him up not in a scarf. They dressed him. They put a dress on him in the newspapers, which was not true. He didn't put a dress on, but that's the same attitude that Rachel Maddow had when talking about what happened with President Trump in Turkey. I'm very happy, by the way, Bill, that he did take the precautions. That he did. Go ahead.
So he left in a catering truck and stuff like that, but to get out of Turkey. I mean, and but if anybody knows anything about poultry and turkeys, it would be Rachel Maddow and what's his butts there,
Lawrence O'Donnell.
Lawrence, I don't want to say his name because he's an idiot. But I mean, you got the two cluckers of the news sources out there, Turkey number 1 and Turkey number 2, and they were just talking turkey.
Yes, so they were talking turkey. Hey, listen, like and share the show. Tell your friends about us. Jim and Bill, it's another day. Jim and Bill, it's another day. Got an interesting little piece coming up after this commercial segment. So do not go anywhere. Also, if you want to email us, it's mail@jimandbill.com. Bill, you came across an interesting little video, and you sent it to me yesterday, and I looked at it and I thought, this has to be, we have to talk about this. This is too important to just let float by. Explain how you got this and who sent it to you, Bill.
Actually, a lady by the name of PK, I won't say the last name, a listener from a network I'm on, and has been for years. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think I'm in that market anymore, but she discovered the podcast. So every once in a while she sends a lot of stuff. But this one particularly caught my eye. And it's a doctor that I thought, I'm going to check this guy out to make sure, my guy by the name of Shah. And because I don't have the video in front of me, and I'm pulling up
I have it.
For whatever reason, my email that I sent to you has crunched everything. But anyway, he's put his reputation on the line by going out and doing these videos. And it is about, let me ask you a question. What is a nice thing that complements a meal?
A good salad. I love I always love a good salad.
Everybody loves a good salad. You go to the supermarket, whether you go to Wise or Shop and Save, you might get their brand, but it's there in a nice little bag and it's got all the greens you like, or the container. And
the bag says on it, washed. It says usually on the bag, washed. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, but there's a thing that's going on now, large, multiple outbreak, and
of cyclosporiasis, I guess, cyclospora.
Cyclospora, which, if you know what that is, it's basically E. coli, and they fluff it off like it's nothing. And this guy points out there's only one way to get that, and it's through fecal matter on your produce, like lettuce. And it turns out that lettuce is actually coming from one particular company, but under different brand names.
And coming from one particular country, too.
Yeah. And it's coming in, going through the automation, not being inspected properly, and it's washed in recycled sewage water.
Well, let's let him explain.
So you're eating.
This is Dr. Neal K. Shah, S-H-A-H. And the guy has done his research. You went back and fact-checked him on Grok.
Yes, I did.
And Grok essentially
did.
Was looking for pros and cons, truths and non-truths. And the bottom line was, it said the video correctly describes a real ongoing outbreak tied to Taylor Farms. Listen to what Neal K. Shah said.
The cyclospora parasite behind America's worst food scare in decades spreads only in one way, through human poop getting on your food. So I'm asking the question today that nobody on the news is saying out loud. How did human feces end up on our food all across the country? I spent hours researching this issue and found some surprising and shocking things I wanted to share with you, which is why I'm making this video. One company that you probably never heard of before all this grows and bags almost 1/3 of all salads in our country under a dozen different name brands that make you think you have competing choices. Even worse, there's a quiet game that these big corporations are playing to make our food overseas instead of growing it right here in the U.S. so they can get around food safety regulations and inspections. If someone you know eats bagged salads, a parent, a spouse, a neighbor, please send them this video. That one share could save them a miserable month of sickness. I'm Neal K. Shah, a Johns Hopkins and NIH-funded caregiving researcher and the CEO of Cariaya. I've helped thousands of families navigate aging, dementia, and serious illness. I'm not a clinician, but a researcher and innovator in caregiving, so I wanted to break this topic down for the people that we care for. Let's get right into it. Cyclospora is a microscopic parasite, and it has only one way of getting into your food, through human feces. It doesn't jump from person to person directly. It only gets into crops when water that irrigates or washes them is contaminated with human sewage. So the question is, why was human waste in the water that's touching the food that ends up on your table? And why couldn't anyone catch it? Go to your fridge, go right now, or just think mentally and picture the bagged salads, Market Side from Walmart, Good and Gather from Target, Earthbound Farms, Kroger label, Costco label. All these are different names with different logos and different prices. So to you, it feels like a shelf full of choices, right? But here's what almost nobody knows. A huge share of those different bags roll off the lines of the same companies. The giant at that center of this outbreak, Taylor Farms, is North America's largest producer of fresh-cut salads. Around $7 billion a year, 30 processing plants, 165 million servings of produce every single week. By its own estimates, it feeds about 1 in 3 Americans their salads. And overall, 4 countries control the entire majority of this salad market. Now, here's why I think that matters for your safety, not just for your wallet. Think about the old world. There were hundreds of small regional processors. If one had a hygiene failure, a few people would get sick in one city, investigators would trace it fast and it would be done. Now think about today. One central plant feeds a dozen brands in every state, and they're all run by the same company. A single contamination event now doesn't stay local. It detonates across the entire country at once through different labels that look like rivals. As the group Farm Action recently put it, these mega processors are the gateway between the farm and your table, so failure at one of them can reach millions of people before investigators even know where to look. I think market share concentration didn't just make this outbreak possible, but it made it enormous. Here's what a CNN investigation documented this summer, and I think it's the heart of why people are so upset. Over the past decade and change, health officials have linked this company, Taylor Farms, to at least 5 separate outbreaks of cyclospora or E. coli. Case after case, the pattern was the same. The company downplays, denies, or insists that no contamination was ever found. This isn't even the first time this exact parasite came from this exact place. Back in 2013, a cyclospora outbreak was traced to the same Mexican facility of Taylor Farms de Mexico, where the FDA found salad components were being washed in recycled wastewater. Think about that. Recycled water. In the one process where clean water should be everything, against the one parasite that you can only stop with clean water. I think that's a total joke, and it's also totally gross. What's been the response this time? When investigators pointed at the lettuce, the company missed the federal window to move fast on a recall. When it finally acted, it called it voluntary and then reminded everyone its own branded bags weren't the ones that were named. I think when a company points to $200 million of spending on food safety, understand that it's against $7 billion in revenue. That's less than 3 cents on the dollar. A former top FDA food official looked at the sheer scale of this and called it an alarm bell, quoting the old line about insanity, that, we're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I think we have a broken food system where one giant company fails in its basic responsibilities. You can't really have a choice around it because the company controls everything, the testing, the timeline, and the story. But I also think blaming just one company lets the real culprit off the hook here, because the deeper failure the current crisis exposes is a massive gap in how the United States oversees imported produce, a gap that really invites companies to send our food and our safety overseas. Over the past 30 years, the source of America's fresh food has shifted dramatically. Today, America imports almost 60% of its fresh fruit and over 40% of its fresh vegetables. In the shoulder and winter seasons, foreign exports, especially coming in from Mexico, fill the produce aisles all across America. And most of us assume that the imported food gets rigorously and mandatorily inspected before it reaches a shelf, or a kitchen or your dining table. Well, that assumption is completely false. Here's a number that'll shock you. What percentage of our imported food gets examined? Here's the answer straight from the Government Accountability Office. The FDA physically examines and samples only 1% to 2% of all imported food shipments arriving at U.S. ports each year. The other 98+% just clears electronically, cleared into your grocery store and your dining table without a single federal inspector opening a crate, looking at a leaf of lettuce, or running one lab test for a pathogen. We've even seen this movie before. Back in 1996, an outbreak of the same cyclosporiasis parasite was finally traced to imported raspberries after investigators first wrongly blamed California strawberries and just totally wrecked those farmers. 30 years later, imported produce still evades these inspections. So how does the government manage this? In 2011, Congress passed the Food Safety Modernization Act, which created something called the Foreign Supplier Verification Program, FSVP. On paper, it sounds responsible that American importers must verify their foreign suppliers meet basic safety standards. But in practice, it's just corporate self-regulation. The FDA hands the checking to the companies themselves. They review the paperwork, check the boxes, and lean on private third-party audits to confirm that foreign farms are actually following water safety and sanitation rules. Well, unfortunately, I think that so-called honor system has totally failed. Between 2020 and 2025, of 361 official warning letters the FDA sent to food operators, 22% went to produce importers for failing basic requirements of that very program. In 2023, the FDA ran over 11,000 physical inspections of domestic food facilities, but only 1,500 foreign inspections. The agency doesn't even keep a full registry of the foreign farms shipping food to Americans. And in this outbreak, the FDA hadn't inspected that Mexican plant since 2019, over 6 years ago, and has physically examined just 5 of more than 168,000 shipments the company sent across the border, over last year. 5 total. I'm not talking about 5%, just 5 out of 168,000. Economists have a name for exploiting this gap: regulatory arbitrage. In plain English, this means these mega corporations cut costs by sourcing food from cheap foreign countries where things like untreated sewage can seep into irrigation canals, where worker sanitation is loosely enforced, and where the odds of a border inspector ever looking at it is almost zero. That's how human feces ends up in your food. The company just outsources food production abroad to cut costs and skirt regulations. And then inevitably, when an outbreak occurs, the processor issues a recall, the PR team manages a news cycle, the foreign supplier promises an internal review. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of Americans are getting sick for weeks. 2 people just died from it. Restaurants and fast food chains are losing customers like crazy. And worst of all, small American farmers are stuck competing with this foreign outsourced food system and now taking all the losses when demand for all fresh produce collapses because people are scared. I think this isn't just bad luck, but the system is totally flawed and creates terrible incentives. Now, shockwaves are tearing through the economy in numbers that you can really feel. When federal officials publicly named Taco Bell on July 17th, its foot traffic didn't just dip slightly. It collapsed nearly 31% the next day, according to the tracking firm Placer. If you think about it, Taco Bell was actually the responsible actor here, voluntarily pulling everything as soon as it realized the grower had contaminated produce. But the damage didn't stop there. Since mid-July, stock prices of sweet greens, Chipotle, and Cava had dropped by as much as 20+% in a single month. Sweetgreen, a salad chain that doesn't even have a confirmed link to this outbreak, has gotten hit the hardest of all. Investors have just dumped the stock 6% on one day, 10% on another, and on headlines alone. And the company told Wall Street that fear of salads costed about 6% of July's sales and forced it to cut its forecast for the whole year. Cava, who has the fresh food bowls, fell almost 25% in a month. The salad chain Chopped, CHOPT, had its foot traffic drop 24% in a day. Panera, Subway, Chipotle, all these places are taking a hit. The worst hit was a growing drive-through chain called Salad and Go, which just filed for bankruptcy a few days ago and closed every location, saying that the cyclosporiasis scare pushed their struggling business over the edge. A parasite in one supplier's lettuce has really hit all of these companies. I think that's the real cost of our broken food system. When people can't tell the dangerous food from the safe stuff, they flee everything and they take the honest businesses and the jobs down with it. So how do we change this system? I think we have to change the structure. Here's 5 possible fixes. Number 1, traceability. There's already a rule that would force lot level tracking so investigators find a contaminated source in hours instead of weeks. It was set to take effect this year and it got pushed back to 2028. Well, maybe we should pull it back and enact it now. 2, fix the water at the farm because that's the only place on earth this parasite can actually be stopped. 3, real transparency. Put the country of origin and the processing plant on the front of the bag in big letters a human can read, not hidden in a code. This is an old idea. Back in 1906, after Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, exposed the total filth in the meat trade, America passed the laws that built the modern FDA. 4, inspect imports like we actually mean it. I think checking just 5 shipments out of 168,000 isn't a safety system at all. We need to fund inspectors and register the foreign farms. If anything, we should examine foreign produce more than we examine American produce. Otherwise, our domestic and local farmers are playing a totally unfair game that's rigged against them. 5, stop pretending that a market with one giant is a competitive market. When a single food processor packs dozens of competing brands for the entire country, I think that concentration itself is a public health hazard, and it deserves the same scrutiny that we'd give to any monopoly. You know, people smarter than me can figure out how to regulate this, but I think we all realize this deserves more scrutiny. Let me leave you with one image. The next time you hold a bag of salad, flip it over and find the little establishment code. You know, a few characters that many people may not even notice. Inside that code is a truth of who really grew and washed your food. I think you shouldn't need to decode that. You shouldn't need a YouTube video to learn that the choice on your shelf might all share the same set of pipes and the same contaminated stream of water, you know, a country away. Here's what you can do this week. Check recalls yourself at fda.gov or cdc.gov. Know the parasites tell, watery diarrhea that keeps relapsing. You know, you feel better and then it comes roaring back, along with fatigue, dehydration, and real weight loss. If that's you or someone that you care for, especially any older adult over the age of 65, do not wait it out. Call your doctor and ask by name to be tested for cyclospora because it's not on the standard stool panel and it needs a specific antibiotic and treatment to clear. Please share this with one person out there who you know that eats salads. You might really save them a miserable month. I'm Neal K. Shah. Let's take care of each other, and I'll see you soon.
You know, if you do anything today, might you share this program with somebody who doesn't normally listen? If for only that one segment, it's 13 minutes long, okay? But it's worth the listen because it's so important. Nobody's being told this by the mainstream media. And by the way, Bill, your friend deserves our sincere thanks. The listener out, PK. I'm sorry, Bill, your mic was down. Go ahead.
Hang on. Is it there?
Yep, you're there.
PKB, I'll just put it that way. I won't say the last name. From Clinton, Indiana. You know, I know her through a network. Used to be on a station, I think, there. And the station's still there, but sometimes formats change and whatnot. You know how radio goes. But yeah, she, you know what? I took a good look at what she sent because devout, nice Christian lady, retired, a nurse.
Yeah,
is what she is. And if you remember the cyclospora, the news talking about, oh yeah, there's something new you got to worry about, but they don't really talk about it or where it comes from or what it is. But if you remember, they were making fun of it about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you'll wake up with explosive diarrhea. I think if I woke up with explosive diarrhea, I'd want to know.
Yeah,
And
you
if it
wouldn't
was
think it's too funny.
No, not at all. And if it's right there in my refrigerator and I got it at my local supermarket, I really want to know this.
Well, first of all, if I were selling salad right now, if I were somebody who made bags of salad and stuff like that, on the bags, I would say made with lettuce grown in the United States of America by local farmers, and I would say, and washed with clean American sanitized water. I would not. We all assume it is because the bags say washed lettuce on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think it's being washed with fecal matter water? I mean, but that's apparently what's being done.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Somebody, up north that I know, I sent it to her, and gosh, within 5 minutes she called and she goes, "There shouldn't be poop on our lettuce."
Yeah.
And I'm going, "Oh, you got the thing and you listen to it."
Yeah.
She goes, "Well, I know I don't have it in mine." I said, "Well, you get a different kind of lettuce, but what does it say?" And then she looks at the bag and says, "Washed in recycled rainwater."
Oh my God.
Recycled.
No. You want fresh. You want fresh, and dare I say, purified. They sell purification systems for water so that, and I hate to be this graphic, but even if it were fecal matter water, if you ran it through purification systems before you wash the food with it, it would be fresh, clean water. But, Bill, they could do something as simple as what do you call it? Steam it and then recycle the water. Do you know what I'm saying?
Jim, I don't know, but either way, the thought of this, and I think about restaurants. How many of you like a nice salad before your dinner?
Not anymore.
I don't want to poo-poo your dinner plans, but I think somebody else already did it for you.
Yeah, how would you like to? Yeah, how would you like to be that little fast food operation, that Salads on the Run or whatever it was called?
Salad with the runs.
No. Please, this is too serious.
Would you like a salad to go? Because
yes,
trust me,
you'll go. Yes. He's got a million of them, folks. But the fact is, that little operation went into bankruptcy. And by the way, one of the first things I would do if I owned that operation would be to turn around and sue Taylor Farms or one of those operations, because that's the direct cause. If you're getting your lettuce from them,
get rid of the lettuce, though.
You think you put a little ranch dressing on. That's tasty. You never knew the other stuff is on it.
Yeah, but who would have thought lettuce?
Well,
lettuce.
I call me crazy, and this came through my. You hear people say all the time, "Well, we let the illegals in because they're doing jobs that Americans wouldn't do."
No, they did a job, all right.
They're working out. Please, they're working out on the farms, picking lettuce that you'll never pick. Well, let me tell you, have you seen lettuce fields? Some of them are like a mile. I mean, they're huge, huge fields, right? So if a little friend, the illegal, is out there picking lettuce and all of a sudden he feels the urge, does he run back to the Porta-John half a mile away? Or
is there even a Porta-John around?
Or does he just let it happen where it's happening, right? I mean, this has got to stop, folks. This has got to stop, period. The food chain is too important to our country. We talk about, we're making light of it here with, the runs and all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, there are older people who, if they get explosive diarrhea, they die. They die, okay? And that's the kind of problem we're dealing with here, and we shouldn't be taking it lightly. And like I said before, if you do anything, if you've ever shared our show with anybody, this is the one you should share just for that one segment.
Yeah, maybe we ought to, for the ruling party in Iran that we're fighting.
Send them some lettuce.
Yeah, we ought to do an airdrop of salad for them.
Yeah, send them a salad. See how they do.
Enjoy.
Yes. Enjoy your salad. It's on us. we'd love to stay, but we have to run, and so do you. Anyway, when we did a fact check on what he was saying,
That's all true.
what you can do nowadays, folks, is you can take like an audio clip and you can literally send it upload it to AI, and it literally listens to the segment, and then it did an evaluation. And,
Certain versions do, yes.
And it's amazing. It said it's all true. What he was saying was all true.
Yeah, and I said, well, what's the background on Dr. Shah? And, oh, no, he's and I'm like, okay, so this guy, and I said, so this guy is risking his career. He goes, yeah, he's trying to get this word out.
Yeah.
And basically he's got better things to do, but he figured this is the most important thing to do right now. And you know what? I agree. When you're talking about, and he was actually very subtle, saying you're going to be sick for a month. The news actually did one thing right: explosive diarrhea. So remember that in this, and just go, do you really want a part of that?
For a month?
I mean, I love salads, but look, I like to have my salad,
You'll lose weight, Bill.
Oh, yeah, you really would.
Yeah.
It's the eat salad and,
you'll lose weight.
The Alice diet.
You'll lose weight. You lose weight the
little
hard
salad
way.
dressing,
Yeah.
nice little roll to go with it. Forget it.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to do it. I'll just have my coffee. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to take a pause here and do a commercial break so we can have some salad. Like and share the show. Tell your friends about Jim and Bill. It's another day. Jim and Bill, it's another day. You can email us at mail@jimandbill.com. President Trump signed an executive order a couple of days ago saying that, how did he put it? I want to make sure a federal judge.
Childhood vaccine schedule?
Yeah, no, here's what it said. A federal judge blocked the U.S. Postal Service from restricting mail-in voting. Now, President Trump said that he's trying to implement some of these things, even though these little dweeb judges are throwing roadblocks. U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani, an Obama appointee, well, there's a surprise, expanded her previous block on President Trump's executive order on mail-in voting. So it was like she blocked it. He went around the block. She parried to the right and blocked him even some more. It's a friggin' game, folks. These little dweeb judges. Who gave these judges the right to supersede the power of the presidency of the United States? I voted for him. I never voted for Indira Talwani for anything.
Well, now that's interesting. Maybe we ought to start voting for, like magistrates and stuff like that. Let's start voting judges in, and they have a term limit on what they
then
got.
you look what's happening right now in our system with all these
we have
progressives.
communist judges.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what? We need, and this is going to sound so xenophobic, racist, or whatever you want to call it, but we need to have, just like the lettuce, because our country has got explosive diarrhea right now. We need
You can't stop doing that today. You got to be.
I know, but we need a purification of our population. We need to know that the people are here, should be here, and want to be here, not here to overturn the apple cart.
Well, Bill, I'd love to say that that's going to happen, but right now it just keeps getting worse and worse. I was reading a story about we're having a big influx of Islamophobic people, not phobic, Islamist into our country. That's the word I was looking for. And those who claim that there would be peace in the Middle East, for example, in Palestine, if Palestine became a state, they're missing a point. Apparently, this is an interesting statistic. Between 1999 and 2026, approximately 1,140,000 to 1,600,000 people were killed by Islamic extremists or Islamic religious nationalists, while 10,125,000 to 14,215,000 were displaced. The victims were a wide range of ethnic and religious minorities, including other Muslims whom perpetrator groups considered heretics, infidels, and ethnic inferiors, which means that there are some Muslims who think that other Muslims who are more maybe go along to get along, well, that's not good enough for them. They'll be punished too. But the big number in that group were Christians. They were Christians. So we're allowing into our country and allowing them to set up their own little, to dare I say, take over some of our cities like Dearborn, Michigan, and they're not adjusting to our lifestyle. People say, well, we're the great melting pot. We've been doing this over decades, dare I say, for centuries, right? We have been known for welcoming the Italians, the Polish, the Germans, the Swiss, you name it, Portuguese, French, all of these people, Irish into the country, and they have assimilated. They have all become Americans. That's what made it such an interesting experiment. We all kind of adjusted to each other. So nowadays in our country, you see Irish guys married to pretty Italian ladies who are married to good-looking German guys. It's a mix of interesting, dedicated people, and they're dedicated to one philosophy, the American belief. We believe in our country and believe in our Constitution. The problem we're having right now is the left, and I do blame this on our educational system. I think a lot of our young people just don't understand where we came from or why we do in this country what we do. They do not understand that we are constitutionalists by the nature of the people that we are. We follow that Constitution. We believe in our history. They're not taught the history in school nowadays. You can talk to a lot of teachers who'll say, well, they stopped teaching the Civil War. They don't teach. They hardly do anything on the Revolutionary War, and maybe they'll touch upon World War I, but not a lot. They'll do so they just skip over a lot of inconvenient history. And people may say, how important is history? If you don't tell people where they're from and what we are, why we're here, then they're going to start making stuff up, which is what's happening right now. They're making stuff up. They're becoming socialist.
Passionate. Like AOC.
Yes.
They get this touchy-feely thing. Well, you know what? Touchy-feely has been done before. But, and I love AOC. She's sitting there going, well, we got to take it out of the hands of older people because they're old. They're old. They're old. We were all young once.
Yeah.
And your youth, this too shall pass. And then all of a sudden, you know what? You'll have a dumber generation. Yeah. Dumber than you, AOC.
Well, there was a movie out. There was a movie out when I was a kid called, I think it was called, was it Wild in the Streets? No, I forgot the name of the movie. It was out back in maybe 1970. And the premise of the movie that anybody over 30 should be removed from society. They were too old. That was the premise of the movie. And, we all laughed at it. Even kids back then laughed at it like, over 30. I'll be over 30 sooner than,
it gets here pretty quick.
You look at a lot of these young socialists, like you just said, they have an attitude like, these older people don't know what the hell they're talking about. Well,
ring around the rosy,
you look at what socialism has done in the world, and you realize it has killed millions of people who've been under it. Millions. They have starved to death. They've been murdered. You look at Joseph Stalin. He was a socialist. He was a communist, and he killed them by the millions. I think he killed more than Hitler. 21 million, I think the number was. 21 million people. No big deal. 21 million, I'm going to go to lunch. That's what his attitude was. That's socialism. That's what we're worried about. Fidel Castro down in Cuba, he had no problem killing people if they didn't agree with his beliefs. You guys, you young people, and I don't mean if you're listening to this show and you're a regular listener, I'm not talking to you because you already are like-minded. But if you happen to bump into the show and you're a socialist, I wish you'd reconsider your values and maybe pick up a history book and do a little in-depth reading on your own. I know reading a book nowadays, that's a bitch. I mean, reading a book, I have to pick up a book, turn pages and stuff. Actually, in all honesty, nowadays, folks, you can do it on your cell phone. You probably can get the book on your cell phone. So now you really don't. But reading a book is an old art form, that you become one with the subject. You kind of get more into it. When you're looking at your cell phone, it's not the same thing.
Oh, yeah, or you get the Cliff Notes and you go, well, okay, I know what the book is. Yeah, you know the gist of the story, but you don't know the rest of the story. And you have to get in there and get into all the nooks and crannies and the nuances. And that's what you're missing.
That's exactly right. So other news stories, by the way, that we should maybe take a glance at before we wrap today's program up. And by the way, again, I want to remind you, do us a favor and spread the word on this show. If you spread it to anybody, that one segment about food, the guy he's a doctor talking, so he's not a great announcer. He's not dramatic enough, but what he had to say, everything he said was a nugget of gold. You had to hear it, folks.
Yeah, it was good.
Yep, and again, to your friend out in Indiana, thank you very much. The Secret Service plane swap, if they could, they should fine the Washington Post and the New York Times for leaking that story. That should be top secret. Why are there so many things in our government that are top secret that you would be penalized for talking about? I mean, why this should have been kept top secret, because I'll bet you it wasn't the first time it's been done. I'll bet you it's happened many times before in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, and President Trump kind of smiled like, oh, you got me. Well, there you go. But I think in the back of his mind, he was probably a little ticked off. Folks, it's hard enough protecting this man. They say he gets more death threats than any president in recent history. You don't have to have the media squealing to the world how they protect him. Little secrets, And that's what they did with this story. Oh, it was interesting. They even showed, by the way, Bill, on television, they showed the truck, the catering truck. They showed it had one of those scissor lifts on it, so the back end of the truck goes up so it's level with the door of the airplane, and that's how he got in. He just walked in, and then they lowered that truck, back end of the truck down and drove him to the other airplane, and then backed that catering truck up to that airplane, and he walked right inside. It was well executed, a smart move, but now what's going to happen, folks? And I'll be now. The next time there's an assassination attempt on President Trump, they'll blow up the catering truck too. They will. Oh, okay. He uses the catering truck. Not a problem. Next time we try it, we take out the truck. Take out the truck. Take out the airplane. Take out, if there's another airplane on the site, we'll take that out too. I mean, that's the kind of danger this damn media is putting our president in. And by the way, you should be pissed off. As an American, you should be pissed off. I don't want to sit through another funeral of a president in my lifetime.
I think Democrats do. They, because they've been taught that Trump, man, no matter what he does, whatever he has for dinner, that's terrible. That's just terrible. It's cloudy today. It's going to rain. Well, it's Trump's fault. I got a flat tire today on my way to work. Yeah, it's Trump's fault. So,
I think Trump's calling you.
yeah. I don't know why.
Yes.
But
he's calling to thank you for all the nice words. Yeah. The Luigi Mangione case. Hear about that, Bill?
No.
An anonymous jury was selected as legal proceedings and trial preparations move forward. Do you know the guy has a following like a movie star? This vile little killer has a following of, and I'm going to tell you, if you follow him because you think he's cute, you're an idiot. And by the way, if you look in the dictionary and the definition of the word idiot, you'll probably see your face. That's you. Mm-hmm. If you follow this clown, this evil SOB who killed that poor guy, look at. You didn't have to like the fact that he was the CEO of United Healthcare. You didn't have to like the fact that he was making millions and probably was squeezing every dollar out of his customers. That's neither here nor there. That's business, all right? But the guy was a married man. He had a wife and kids. He was in New York on business, and he was going for a walk in the morning on a morning where he thought, get a little fresh air before I start my day and clear my head. And he walks out the door, and this little evil SOB, he didn't even have the decency to shoot him in the face to face. He shot him in the back. You know, what was that story about, was it the Wild West shot Mr. Hickok? Anyway, there was a story about a gunfighter who was shot in the back, too, you know? And, it was it Billy the Kid who was shot in the back? Yeah, he was, by Mr. Ford. And there was a lot of talk about...
That's a cowardly thing to do.
It is.
You know, I don't care if you're taking on a bad guy or what. You don't shoot somebody in the back.
Right.
And this guy had a wife. He had a family. He worked for, we'll call him an evil empire. Okay, he probably wasn't a good guy. But you know what? You are not the judge and jury to do something.
Well, he may have
like
been a
that.
great guy too. He may have been trying to make a difference to the whole system. We don't know.
Turn that ship around.
Yeah.
And I got a theory on that. I'm not going to talk about it now on the air, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you my theory afterwards, but it'll make you go, huh? Think about it.
A lot of our younger people don't even remember who Bundy. Remember Ted Bundy?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had a following of fans, too. He had a bunch of people who thought he was really handsome, really cute. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a vile, despicable, satanic murderer. The guy was awful. And, he had a following of people who, young girls who sent him intimate objects in the mail, Unbelievable. Hey,
Glory, huh?
I want to play. I want to talk just for a second, if I can, Bill, about a movie that I saw yesterday. If it's okay with you, while we wrap this one up, if you are looking for a movie to watch on television because you're bored and you want, do not, dare I say, do not watch The Visitor. It was miserable. I'll tell you why it was miserable. Sometimes people say, "Oh, it's too much sex," and then I didn't. Well, to me, there's only one thing.
There wasn't enough. No, I'm kidding.
No. To me, there was something this was satanic, and this was made by MGM. This was backed by MGM Plus, one of the streaming sites, and a lot of money put into it. And I say it was satanic because the premise of the movie was that this English guy marries an American woman, and he moves back to the U.S. to live in her hometown, and come to find out in her hometown, the entire town is a town of Satanists, including, he finds out later, his wife. And by the way, his wife admits that he was born in this town, and
the brothers and sisters.
She says, you were kidnapped when you were a baby, and I found out where you were in England, and I came back to bring you home. So in the movie, this young woman who marries this guy marries her brother, essentially, right? She marries her brother, and she gets pregnant by her brother. So incest is part of the movie. And by the way, it's just kind of tossed aside like it's an aside, like it moves the plot. Okay, don't get into any deep conversation about that. So you have... You're thinking as you're watching this movie, well, the town is filled with Satanists, and the wife is a Satanist. Does this guy do the right thing? Does he break the system, and does he escape with the child, or does he? What happens? Does he leave this evil, vile environment, and is that the positive message? No, I'm going to tell you how it ends, folks. It ends with he becomes a Satanist. That's right. He just capitulates, he becomes a Satanist, and the damn movie ends. And, folks, I'm familiar with actors. I've been around them all my life. I've seen them, and, some of these guys, they'll do anything for a buck. And that movie proved it, because there's a scene at the end where the entire town is in this large building room, right? And it's, of course, they lit it, with red, like it was red flames and stuff. And the entire town, all of the people are wearing, it looks like they're wearing their skivvies, all right? I mean, they were covered, but barely. And these are fat shopkeepers and the school mom and the store, all this. These are the townspeople. There must have been in the movie 100 or so that were on camera, and they gleefully chanted satanic rhymes throughout maybe the last 20 minutes of the movie. And it was satanic rhymes. I mean, they were praising. I won't even repeat it. They were praising Satan. Okay, and it ended with this guy saying, "Okay, I'm it." And folks, you couldn't get me as an actor, even if I was a starving actor in Hollywood. If some guy said, "Hey, look, I got a few bucks for you. You want to be in a movie? They're shooting a movie. You gotta go in and gotta dress up in a nightie. Oh no, I tell you what, you gotta dress up in your BVDs and you gotta chant the satanic chant, so that, mind you, all your friends who are watching this movie will say, "What happened to Jim? I mean, he's chanting Satanism." The other thing I would be afraid of is if I'm actually chanting this, is it going to evoke something? Does it know the difference between acting and for real? But the point is, folks, you don't need this crap. And it also shows you, Bill, what Hollywood is all about. I really believe this. I've heard people say it is an evil friggin' cesspool, and I believe certain elements are. And I think that showed it. So The Visitor, pass on it.
So in summation of this review, the movie sucked.
It was a hell of a movie.
Yeah,
literally.
A hell of a movie. Yeah, well, you know what? I will say this about Hollywood. Hollywood, they're showing more and more their true colors.
They are.
When you go back and further back, they used to keep it under wraps. Some of the gross things that they did. They're old black and white things that they did that were pretty evil. But you look at stars that evolved in the 40s and 50s, Jeff Crawford, and then Rock Hudson, and we go forward into some of the bigger names. Even after that, they were all, dare I say, gay. But they had to put on this Hollywood face of the strong, virile men, and
well, you hear stories, Bill. You hear stories now about a lot of the big stars now. If you really knew these people, you'd know that they supposedly they believe in this stuff.
Yeah, now there are good people in the business.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, "Oh boy, I'd love to be an actor. I'd like to do that." Yeah, but it just seems like there is a cult club,
yes,
that goes on out there, and it's sad.
Bill, look what happened to P. Diddy, right? You heard all those stories about the sex parties with underage children and all these different actors who were participating in it. And think of how fast they squelched that story. Even though he's still in jail, even though he's still trying to get out, all the peripheral stuff about the other actors, it was squelched. It was put down like a smoldering fire. Folks, I'm not a prude, but you have to be careful, and be careful about what you play with. You don't. I believe there is good in this world. And see, when you talk about goodness, Mel Gibson, right? They try to make him out. They'll tell you, "Oh, he used to have a drinking problem," and well, maybe he did, But I'll tell you what he's a believer in God and Christ. He has really he tried to get The Passion of the Christ produced in 2004, and even though it was Mel Gibson, superstar, the Hollywood studios wouldn't do it. You know why they wouldn't do it? Because it was a movie promoting Christianity. So help me God. So you know who did it? Mel Gibson. He put his fortune up, backed it, did the movie. It made $600 million, which in 2006 and 2005 was the most any movie has ever made in history. It was a record-breaking movie, period. Right. He's doing a follow-up now. It's been 20 years. It took him 20 years to get the backing to do it even now. And he's just completing. But what he's doing this time is he's shooting 2 movies at one time. So he'll get this one finished, and he'll get another one. He'll put them all together, and he'll release them at different times. But the point is, it doesn't even matter to these people in Hollywood if it's a moneymaker, if it promotes something that they're not happy with, like Christianity. Well, it doesn't get done. But you want to do a movie of gleefully dancing in support of Satan? Not a problem.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I have a theory about all that, but I'll explain that off the show because it would take too long to explain.
Well, now that you've teased it, you have us all piqued. Our curiosity is...
Curiosity. Well, sometimes, curiosity
kills the cat. I know.
Yes.
Anyway, I think we can pull the plug on this one. It has been an interesting program. Again, please tell your friends about... At least play for them that middle segment about the food and the dirty water and the sanitation conditions of some of our processing plants. Unbelievable. You can take us out of here, my friend.
Hey, look. It's been an explosive show, but until next time, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Who are we? And why are we here? Will we be welcome or possibly feared? Do we unite and stand tall as a nation of one, or split and divide to be mocked and shunned? Are our leaders patriotic, honest and true? Do they share our beliefs? Are they red, white, and blue? The truth is out there, you just have to search. Settle for less, you'll be left in the lurch. No left-leaning lies, no socialist swill. It's straight talking truth from your friends Jim and Bill. Are our leaders patriotic, honest and true? Do they share our beliefs? Are they red, white, and blue? Are our leaders patriotic, honest and true? Do they share our beliefs? Are they red, white, and blue?
All music the property of Jim and Bill. All rights reserved.
This is CRN America.